So welcome everyone. This is a prototyping call where we're going to be doing hands-on prototyping. The goal of this call is to learn from each other on the best ways to prototype. And the goal would be to, within an hour, be extremely hands-on and pretty much walk away with a clickable prototype or a half a clickable prototype. And to also empower every one of you on the call to create your own prototypes and to know how to prototype. Um, I'm going to be leaning into the expertise of Christoph because he's very knowledgeable in terms of the animations and when to use particular animations. So I'm very grateful that he's here because I'm going to hand over that part of the call to him. But to explain a little bit about the project, the prototyping that we will be doing is on Bitcoin Core app. If any of you on the call are not familiar with Bitcoin Core app is a project within the Bitcoin design community for the entire for Bitcoin Core. It is a redesign of the current GUI of Bitcoin Core, and it is mobile first design. So if any one of you are familiar with Bitcoin Core, you're familiar with the current interface. The current interface is being redesigned by the Bitcoin design community, and that redesign is called Bitcoin Core app. I'm going to link to Bitcoin Core app in the um, in the chat over here, and here is Bitcoin Core app. Thanks to Christoph within the community who has been pouring all of his work into maintaining these documents with the goal of these being the best design documents that ever existed in the whole ecosystem. So have a look at those documents because there's a lot of time and effort poured into them. Michael's also contributed to those documents, and I've only just started a new contribution. So that is a summary of the project that we're working on in the prototyping. What is AssumeUTXO? He likes the GIF. Okay, so AssumeUTXO is basically, and I wrote a definition down here because I really do not know if I can remember it. But I created a Figma file specifically for this call, which I'm just going to pull up very briefly here. Where is it? Here. So I've created this Figma file for the purposes of this session. It is here. I will share my screen very briefly. Here we go. So, is my screen visible for everyone?
No.
No? Okay, one second. Here we go. Okay. So, AssumeUTXO is a particular user flow within Bitcoin Core app. What is AssumeUTXO? I took this straight out of an explanation that someone provided. It's basically a technique to allow a user to basically start using the wallet before the full block download has happened. That's in very simple terms. What does this mean for the user experience? A lot of the complaints or the friction points in the current user experience is that users are downloading the wallet to use the wallet, and there's a very long time for the block download. And what then happens in the user experience is then the user says, well, I do not have any more patience. I'm not going to wait for this. And then they basically leave. They stop using the application. So the AssumeUTXO could really add to a really much better user experience if done right. And the goal of this session is to validate. The goal of creating a prototype for a Bitcoin Core app for the UTXO user flow is basically to validate and test our design decisions, because it's one thing to see the designs in Figma and see the screens in Figma, and it's another thing to actually click through and test the designs. And Yashraj, who's here on the call, as well as G Deer, has created some very nice prototypes. And that's basically it. I hope I did a fairly okay explanation of AssumeUTXO's. I will hand over the process. I'll hand over the call now to Christoph, because these beautiful transitions here are actually done designs by Christoph. It's within the Bitcoin Core file. I think it's useful to understand before we start prototyping um, where the different transitions are useful and how to make decisions about when to use a particular transition in prototyping. And then we can actually move into like a hands-on session where we can show you how to prototype and how to create prototypes. So I will hand it over to Christoph.
All right, thanks. So I'll just take one quick step back and just say the point of prototyping is to make things more real, feel more real than they actually are. You just have some static pixels that you put together in your design tool. It doesn't feel like the real thing. So we just pretend, right? We take simple tools. We don't want to build the whole thing. We don't want to code. We want to get this done as quickly as possible to make it feel like we're actually going through the experience, and we can show it to someone, and we're playing pretend. It's like they get the sensation that they're really responding to the thing that will be built in the end. And there are many ways to do this. Some people, they do paper prototyping. They actually just cut out little pieces of paper and pretend tap through them. Product designers, they use foam models of things and then just like sit and pretend to interact. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. Since we're a ton in Figma, we'll just take a look at that one, I guess, because it's also a pretty effective tool for that. So here, particularly with AssumeUTXO, there are also different things you want to validate, right? I think with AssumeUTXO, it's not about creating some like crazy, awesome, complex transition or so. I think it's a fairly basic feature. You have some static screens. You have a handful of buttons and some basic options. It's not super intricate. Like, let's say, Google Maps on a phone or so. It's like there's all this zooming and panel sliding and stuff. I think it's pretty simple here. So I think the biggest thing to validate is actually just if what the text, the options, the way the interface responds makes sense to people. So I think the basic features in Figma are pretty perfect for that. If you want to build a much more complex prototype, then other tools are handy. But I think Figma is a pretty good one for this one. So how do we actually do this? Moya said that there's something here. Everyone starts designing and starts working on designs. Should I do a quick intro about how you set up a prototype in Figma? Or yeah, okay. Yashrash, what's up?
Yeah. Hey guys. Uh, so my perspective in this call was like the way that I approached this call was that like prototyping seems to be a part of the user research bit, because there is something about the proposed design or the proposed problems that we want to solve that we are not sure about, and we want to basically figure out how the users would react. And like Christoph said the other day, prototyping is one way to find out the answers. Some other ways to find out answers might be simply an interview, right? Or simply like a form, that like a user research form, like a survey that somebody could fill in. And I wonder what what category or categories of this kind of user research does the problems that we are trying to address, the questions that we are trying to address for Assume UTXO, what category of user research do they fall under? So that was my lens towards that. Like, does that seem wrong? Because I feel like this call is more focused on prototyping, and so maybe we can like define or choose some of the questions or some of the design decisions that we want to make, or questions we want to get answered through the prototyping exercise.
I think during the call yesterday, we chatted very briefly about the design goals. I think we were all thinking about that together. And with this particular prototyping and testing out this particular design, we have one challenge, and that challenge is What is that file type called? I have to just look up the name of the file type.
Snapshot. Yeah.
Snapshot. The snapshot provides a particular challenge with this prototyping because, just to give some people background on what a snapshot is, um, for the Assume UTXO to work, the user would actually have to download a snapshot. And a snapshot, in a sense, it is a snap of the entire block. So they're not downloading the entire block, they're downloading a snap of the block, which then speeds up the process and they can quickly move into transactions. But that poses a particular challenge because we do not know how long it's going to take to download the snapshot. So the suggestion from Christoph yesterday was, well, let's just verbally ask users a question. If you were to follow this process and you were to wait anywhere between half an hour to an hour for the snapshot to download, would you be okay with that? Because that's actually something that's not testable. We cannot test how long the snapshot is going to take to download. We can only assume based on data how long the snapshot is going to take. Um, so I hope that answers a little bit of your question. And I think where this fits into the whole process is this is more a validation of your designs. So the goal of this would be to validate the designs that we have before we actually move them into development. Which, since we have the time now during the project where design is way ahead of development, we actually have time to validate our designs to see. And by validating, we can click through and we can see, okay, this is missing. This doesn't actually feel very logical over here, or this screen seems like a repetition. We can actually delete the screen and move that option or button into the screen before. So it allows you to see in a very real way how your designs actually play out, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Yashraj?
Mhm. Yes, actually, for sure, and maybe even totally. I see like this, like you said, like it's a validation exercise, and fortunately, we have multiple sets of designs for this. And so, what you are seeing on Christoph's screen, the background right now, is sort of one of the approaches, but there are a couple of more approaches that we have. And I think one thing that might be useful is that once we create prototypes, we could like ask the users to go through them, and maybe they could like respond saying, hey, this one makes sense, this one seems like it's too long. If it's in the onboarding, it seems like it takes like it's a very complicated onboarding then. Or they might say, this if it is like the UTXO snapshot feature is like placed on this page, it's not discoverable enough, or it is not explained enough, and maybe so it makes sense here or there. A bunch of definitely questions and design decisions that we would definitely like to like find answers to, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. The on GitHub issues, you and G posted basically like all your designs below each other, which is good to look through them and study them. But we can just make simple prototypes, and then we can kind of react to them differently. Because the prototypes, ideally, they force you to actually really read what you look at what's in front of you with user brain, not with designer brain. But yeah, I started
Yes.
just setting up this basic interaction here already in the back.
So now we're going to have prototyping 101 with Christoph. And this is an experience
Okay.
for all of us to learn how to create prototypes. So floor is yours, Christoph.
Okay. Well, I think some people already know some of this stuff here, but I mean, it's actually kind of pretty straightforward here. In Figma, you basically select one frame and you say, well, when the user clicks on it, then go to another frame, and then you say, well, the other frame should come from the left side, right side, whatever, with this speed and this type of transition, and then Figma kind of does it for you, and that's pretty much it. So we have this handy prototype tab in the top right here. And when you're in that tab, then you can just select, I'm selecting one of those frames, and you see it's purple. And when I hover it, I get this little plus button here. And then I simply drag that one to wherever I want to navigate next. And then it automatically snaps. Hope everyone can see that one. And that's kind of it. Now I have a prototype, right? So you can pick a screen and you say, this is my flow starting point here, which you do in the top right corner. And once you have that, you can press this little preview button on this flow, and then you click it. The animation's not right. I can't go back to the previous screen, but we basically have a prototype here. And those are the absolute basics. It's very straightforward. And then you just start tweaking things and connecting more of these little frames, but you're basically just picking the elements that you already have, and you're just giving them like an extra, like you enter a different way of looking at the design, the prototype view, and then you add these little arrows to them. And then whichever arrow you set, you click it again, and that's when you can start defining what the animation should look like. You can say, they're like different ones, like you can push it out, slide in, slide out, and whatever you choose, you have this little visualization below that shows you exactly how it works. And you can pick different directions. And yeah, I don't know. I think those are pretty much the basics. Here I'm going to use the push one at 400 milliseconds. I like that one. How does that sound, Mo?
No, Christoph, you're asking me how it sounds. I think that's great. I learned a lot from you with regards to prototyping. I mean, I did do prototyping when I was studying UX design, but prototyping, I feel like you have to do it consistently to remember how to do it, because otherwise you forget. But as Christoph said, step number one is actually framing your design, because if you do not frame it, you cannot prototype with it. And then you basically just click the top button and you're good to go. You can start creating animations and you can start going. I mean,
cool, Mo.
yeah.
How about you go in and you add to the prototype that you can go back to the previous screen?
Okay, let me give it a shot. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself because apparently it sounds like I have a Hoover in the background. So I'm gonna mute myself.
It's much better now, by the way.
Okay, that's good. They've stopped.
Maybe just one addition to prototyping is a prototype is by definition not the real thing, right? So you should always prototype only what you want to test. So if you just want to test whether something fits in a flow, in a screen flow, then you don't need to really worry about very detailed animation details, right? You just want to make sure that people kind of get from one screen to the next the way you want, and then everything else is basically just icing on the cake. So it's also it helps to just do the things that are necessary to kind of keep the scope limited, because you can really go over the top with animations and stuff, and it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, and I think every designer learns very, very quickly that if you go a bit too far, then you just have a ton of lines all over the screen and you have no idea what's going on anymore. It happens so quickly.
Yeah.
And this is very simple. There are basically 3 buttons on this screen: back, AssumeUTXO, and load UTXO snapshot. But if you have a home screen of something, you might have 10, 20 buttons or so, and then you have a few screens like that, and then if you really want to hook everything up, then it's a disaster. I mean, the application can handle it. It can, but there are some, I would say, a few more advanced techniques in Figma as well, but it falls apart very quickly. Not that it breaks, but it becomes unmanageable in terms of complexity.
Yeah, really do that only if you need to. If we have time, I can later at the end show something that I had to do for some testing that is advanced, but it took me a long time and debugging it. But Mo,
I'm going to
do your thing while we talk.
No. I'm sharing my screen and I'm going to do the task that Christoph gave me. So, because this is a learning session. So, what I'm going to do is, I hope my screen is visible. I'm now going to try to create a back. I want to, so this one over here that says assume UTXO. I'm assuming that when someone is interacting with the prototype and they click on this, it's going to take them, they're going to expect that it takes them back to the screen over here. So what I'm going to do, I hope I can remember. Let's see. I'm going to click on this one over here. And now my whole screen is selected. So I'm going to click on the prototyping button. Oh, it's opening a new screen for me here. Oh, hold on. No, wait. I'm clicking on the prototyping button over here in the top left. So there's two tabs. One tab is design and the other tab is prototype. So what I'm going to do is you will see now when I double click on this, I've pretty much just double clicked on this bit of text here. So what I'm telling it is that when someone clicks on this, I want them to go back to the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this little blue one and I'm just going to attach it to the screen. And now it's asking me for information. It's saying, hey, what type of interaction do you want? I'm trying to zoom in here, but it's kind of
Well, I actually don't see that. It's like there's a. Did it not render for you guys earlier? I don't see a blue line. I don't see
you don't.
a modal.
Oh,
No.
interesting.
I
I,
see
I
it.
I see it. Yeah,
You
me
see a
too.
blue line.
Ah, okay. Hold
Yeah.
on. Now I see it. Yep, got it.
Okay.
Just looking at the wrong thing.
So
Cool.
what type of interaction would we use for this one? It's asking me if I want to push, if I want to move in, if I want to move out. So which would be the most logical interaction for this? This screen is going to slide, it's going to move back to this screen. So it would move, it would be a push.
I would use a push. The slide in is in a way that the previous scene remains and
Yeah.
the new one comes on top of it, which is helpful if you wanted to go back, right? So it like spatially, there's something temporarily that pops up and then you go back to it. But this is more of a push.
So I guess this would be okay as a setting. I would do a push in from the left because it's going this way. And would 400 milliseconds be okay?
That's what we have in the app right now,
Yeah,
400 milliseconds. In the HTML prototype, we have 600, which is also fine.
also fine. So I guess this should be fine. And now if I click prototype here, let me just share this tab instead. I think this tab should be now visible. When I click Assume UTXO, it goes back to the previous screen. And Bob's your uncle, you've created an interaction in your prototype. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just really simple stuff. If you do it a couple times, you'll know how to do it. Play around, make mistakes. Don't have to get it right the first time.
Yeah, if I can quickly jump in, I'm no prototyping expert, but I've done the Figma prototype thing a couple of times, and I feel like because like you like don't have to try to overthink or figure it out in advance. You can like quickly choose something and try it out, and then if it feels wrong, come back and tweak it, and then try it again. And I felt like that was the way for me to figure out prototyping the screens with Figma. Like this is just the super simple stuff. I'm pretty sure whatever Michael was talking about the advanced things, I might not be knowing them. But this was like the super simple basic heuristic is that I just try it out. It doesn't work, I do it again.
100% Yashraj. So if that's
Yeah.
prototyping 101, and now for the next half hour, we're going to move into actual prototyping. I know that we have I know that G has created designs, and I know that Yashraj has designs. Is there anyone else? I mean, we can all just play around with their designs, or we can bring our own
Um,
designs in if you also have some designs for AssumeUTXO. But I've made the design file open to everyone, and I've created two tabs. If you do have some designs and you want a new tab, you can just add in a new tab, work in your own tab. But I've added in some individual tabs. I'm just trying to exit the screen here. I've added in
Yeah.
individual tabs.
Mhm.
So Yashraj, if you can bring in your designs into prototype tab
Yes.
number one, and G,
Mhm.
if you can bring your Figma designs into prototype
Yeah.
tab number two,
Mhm.
and then we're going to enter into the creation phase. We're going to start creating
Um,
prototypes.
yeah. Before we jump into that, can I quickly ask Christoph how he made the progress bar go from like partially filled to filled all the way? Because
Yeah,
I think
I was gonna add that you might know this from Keynote. The Figma has a smart animate where you just say, "Here's one screen, here's another screen," and you just moved some stuff around a little bit. You made some changes, and you just say, "Animate," and then it will figure out the differences and try to animate from one state to another. So basically, I just created the
nice.
same screen here twice, one times with the fill progress bar, one times without, and then for the animation, I selected Smart Animate and set 5,000 milliseconds. So it's just going to fill that bar over 5 seconds.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
basically, what Smart Animate does, it animates only the things that are different from in each screen. So the rest remains the same.
And it's actually pretty good, even with a few more complex
Hmm.
things. It's quite impressive. Of
Yeah.
course, at some point, if you have totally different things on the screens, it will not make sense. But generally, it is pretty handy. And Keynote had this like 10 years ago. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is nice. I think I vaguely remember maybe using it once, but it was just like a hacky thing. This is like now I think I will not forget about this one. This one is super cool. Uh, no, I was thinking that because you said that we can have these 5 files and 5 tabs, or I'm not sure what 5 pages or 5 tabs, and the good thing is that we do have a bunch of user flows that we can if the objective is to just prototype and see if they make sense. Because in the original file, we do have a bunch. I also have G's the user flow that G has in the version that he has already created. I have that too in the file that I have, and we, we can use that as one of the user flows, and we also have a bunch of other user flows that I think if I was doing it alone, it would take me like X amount of time. If it's three, four, five of us, like yeah, it would take like 20% of the time that it would take me. So maybe can we do that, or how are you thinking? Because I do have this 4 or 5 user flows that are in that file.
You have four different five user flows, and then G has one user flow.
Yes.
So we bring in the user flow of G in one tab,
Yeah.
and then in your user flows, could you maybe just choose one and bring that one in, the one that
Mhm.
you think would be providing the best user experience? Bring that user
Mhm.
flow in just those screens. So then we'll have one and we'll have two
Yeah.
user flows.
Hmm. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
And then what each of us can do is we can create our own tabs in Figma, and you can grab the user flow from Yashraj, or you can grab the user flow from Chi, and you can play around with it, and you can create your own prototype. So we'll all work in our own tabs. So I'll give Yashraj and G a moment to pull in their designs. Christoph is already in full design mode. Look at that
Hmm.
focus on his face. So we'll leave Christoph to be in full prototyping mode. And then each of us just grab your own. Christoph is already in prototype number three. He's already running. So
Yeah.
grab your
Yeah.
own copies of the various files and start prototyping.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, let's go into action mode. Should we play? There's no music option over here in We usually play music when we do these fun stuff. So you have to be careful with what music you play because of YouTube has. So I'm going to opt for no music for this time, just because of music rights and that kind of thing. Figma, PJam has some fun music that has no rights to it. But yeah, grab your own file, make your own tab in Figma, and we'll have about 10 minutes to see if everyone can play around with creating their own prototype after our prototype 101 session. Go for it.
Um, hey guys, I have copy pasted my prototype in prototype 1 and G's prototype in prototype 4. So we have those ready. I think Christoph is working in the prototype 3 section.
So just to verify, G's one is in number 4.
Yes. Yeah. If I can rename it, yeah.
Can I get the file link in which we are prototyping?
Uh, Unfortunately, like I don't have like a Figma version of G's flow, so these are just screenshots. So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but maybe we can just create those transitions and
V, I dropped the link to the Figma file in the comments as well.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Also, if there is like an empty page, I can drop more user flows. I have a lot of user flows. So just like go to my file, I can paste my file to just like pick a user flow, just copy paste it. This is the file that I'm working in, just in case you don't have the link for the file. Just pick up something and you can start using it.
By the way, were there any questions?
No questions. Everyone is so hyper focused. I love this. Let's get going. Let's just prototype. Love it.
I have a question, I think. So along with some Figma designs, I also copy pasted some screenshots and I'm not able to draw a prototype to those. So maybe they like have to be on a frame before I do it or
Could be.
okay, I'm just gonna try it out then. Yep, that was it. That was it.
So we'll have another 5 minutes to finish off our prototype, and then I have another exercise which I think would be very useful to do after we finish with our prototype.
Cool if I go in and mess up your prototypes.
Go for it, Christoph. I'm happy for you to mess around with mine at least.
No, actually mess up, not mess around.
He says this is the first time he's using Figma. He's mainly here to answer dev-related questions. G, proud of you. Proud of you for using Figma for the first time. Well done.
Yeah,
G, don't learn everything about this one, okay? Because then I won't have anything to do. So take it slow, buddy.
I had a question about the drag and drop. Do you feel like it's necessary these days to have like a drop zone where, say, you can drop stuff here, or you feel like people just kind of get it? They just drag things in a window and just kind of expect it to work, and you don't have to call it out.
I think a visual clue or affordance is still good, but the drop zone would probably be the entire window. But if I yeah, sometimes some type of visual indication. Maybe it could also just be a text, but so that you discover the feature in the first place.
Choose or drag in a file, your snapshot or so. And then as soon as you hover, maybe there's like a rectangle around the whole screen or so that you get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Slack does it that way. So as soon as you drag something over the application window, the entire screen gets into a kind of a hover or drag state, and then you can just drop it and so that's pretty nice, so that you don't have to fiddle around with the trying to hit this little thing, but it still tells you can drag stuff.
Yeah, it would be generally cool if the whole application, if you could drag in PSBTs or I don't know, any other supported wallet DAT files, and it just kind of responds in the way that you expect it to.
Yeah.
Talking about dragging, one of the coolest things about Sketch that I loved and that I missed was that in the layers on the left-hand side, you could select layers and just drag them into your Finder, and that was the export. It was so smooth to quickly just drag stuff out, and it was so seamless.
Never found that out.
And now we move into the next phase. Also, just to give you an idea, we do have to wrap up the call at exactly 14 minutes on the dot, because Christoph and I have another call after this, which we do have to be on time for. It's pretty intense for us. We've had 3 calls back to back, which is 3 hours worth of calls. So yeah. So the next phase of the session will basically be, the goal of creating a prototype was to realize what's missing, what doesn't feel intuitive, does this make sense? So now that you have your prototype, which you can essentially click the prototyping button, if you click the prototyping button, you can now click through your prototype and use it as a real user would use it. So in the next phase of this session, I'd like you to click through your prototype, and you'll take 5 minutes for that. And as you click through your prototype, take a pen and paper or open up a notepad on your computer, and make some notes about things in the design that you think, well, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. So you're now making observations of your prototype that you've created, and you're really trying to put yourself in the user's shoes and trying to understand what makes sense, what design decisions make sense, what don't make sense, what might it be useful to add in here and add in there. So for the next 5 minutes, we're going to click through our prototypes, open through a notepad on your screen, or take a pen and paper, whatever you want to work with, and make notes. And we're going to then save these notes somewhere, because we want to share these notes in the Bitcoin Core channel, because then we actually have useful, solid stuff that we can move forward with after doing the session. So 5 minutes, click through your prototype and make notes. I hope that sounds like a good next.
Yeah, I wouldn't call my prototype here perfectly thought through. So there's definitely some stuff there to do.
Look at
You
that.
could also leave comments in Figma.
Yeah, leaving comments in Figma is another option because then everything's in a central place. Do whatever feels comfortable for you. You can leave notes in Figma, which is actually easier because we can actually go back to that. So if it feels comfortable leaving notes in Figma in your tab, just leave in notes in your actual tab on Figma.
Perfect, ready to implement, everything solved.
See, this is the value of prototypes. See, this is how we roll in the Bitcoin design community. Okay, guys. So we've now we'll wrap up that bit of the session. We now should have in our individual tabs a whole bunch of notes, a whole bunch of realizations, which we've had as a result of creating the prototype. We now know where we can make improvements. We can now know whether certain design decisions actually make sense. And since we now have this file, what we can do is, like for example, I can go in and I can just grab the notes that everyone made, and I can make a full summary of all of that, and I can just put it as a GitHub issue, and from there we can maybe move forward with design decisions. I don't know. I'm just trying to think through an idea.
Yeah. It seems like a good idea if we separately take some time to go through everyone else's prototypes, and then we kind of need to consolidate somehow into one solution that we're happy with.
Yeah.
And then we may want to update one prototype to look at again and just see how close we are.
Yeah, we need to consolidate. That's a good one. We need to consolidate all of ideas and all of the notes on everyone's prototype. Does it feel good for everyone if we say like you play with your prototype for a week, and we sort of say end of week, next week Friday, everyone's played with their prototype, they've made their notes in their prototype, and then we put that, then we're ready to actually consolidate everyone's notes and ideas and everything. Does that feel okay with everyone next week Friday?
Feels way too long for me, but for everyone else, if they want to go, then it's fine. I feel like it's pretty.
We
can
could
move
even do
through it pretty quick.
Wednesday next week. I
Yeah.
mean, it just really doesn't take.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's up to Yashraj. I think Yashraj the Assume UTXO project lead.
Yashraj, project lead,
I
Assume
mean,
UTXO.
I'm ready to do this tomorrow. I'm ready to do this by
Okay.
tomorrow, provided everybody else does the work. If I have to
Okay.
do the work, it will take me 6 months. So we can do the next call 6 months. But we can do a call tomorrow too. It's just that you guys have to do all the work. So yeah, that's
No. Okay. Okay. So shall we say by end of this week, and
Yeah.
then we consolidate before next Bitcoin Core call Wednesday next week.
Yeah, we don't have to have calls all the time too. I mean, we can do
Exactly.
async with comments and
Yeah.
videos. And
yeah.
stuff.
We also have design huddle tomorrow, by the way.
We do. Absolutely. You can choose to jump in on the design call tomorrow and on whatever you want.
So I feel like
Yeah.
wrapping up this feature requires people to be very familiar with it. So I think
Yeah.
inviting just anyone in, it'll just be a lot of, just level setting.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think a focused session or individually working through things and then maybe catching up Wednesday might be.
Yeah, like when I was trying to do the prototypes, like I realized, wait, no, so there is like this case, there is also this case, and prototyping, like the prototype is not gonna feel real until I build all the different screens and then create a prototype, and then think about some other different scenarios. I just had this like this problem here, which I like quickly ran into, and I can quickly describe if we are okay on time, and you can tell me the solution to that. Um, so yeah, so quickly jumping in on this one, the question is that if the checkbox, if there is a certain checkbox, that if the checkbox is checked, you do a certain transition, and if the checkbox is unchecked, you do a different transition, because you have to go to different pages based on whether the checkbox is checked or not checked. And I think there is like a conditional thing somewhere pro in the prototyping interface. I just didn't have the time to like reach that and do it. But the idea is, if I indicated in the UI that I have a UTXO snapshot, only then I would see a certain screen. If I don't indicate that, then I don't even see that screen, and the onboarding can go on, right? Because we don't want to like just like
Yeah.
show somebody a screen, and of course they don't have the file. So why should we even show it to them? So there is a checkbox like that. So how do we?
I'm not a big fan of the checkbox, to be honest.
I know.
You have two different options there that are very specific about the long-term storage amount of the application. You kind of sneak something else in, then that has a hidden effect on whether you see another
Yes.
screen or not. So not a huge fan of the
Yes.
checkbox solution.
I agree. So I think I definitely see where you are coming from. What I just thought, like, hey, this is like going to impact the storage required. So just have the checkbox here, because then I can update the numbers in real time that I displayed on that screen itself. Because let's say I'm not going to do the UTXO snapshot thing. I'm not going to load the file. In that case, I only require 2 GB. But if I have the file and I'm going to load it, it's going to require like 3, 4 GBs or 5 GBs.
Temporarily.
Yes, but it will require that. And it is temporary, yes. And so that temporariness is also a question. Like, that might be a question for G or for some other devs. Like, am I required to like, tell the user and to have them ensure that they have that much empty space? Because if they don't, what happens then? I don't know. I mean, that's like an open question. That is definitely one of the things that I don't know what the answer is, and things like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
Mo and I have to run.
We have to run.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I
Yeah,
was just going to
if
say we
if
have
you
to
don't
wrap it
mind.
up in the next minute.
Yeah, sorry.
So we
But
can even just get a 1 minute break between our calls. But how does this feel for everyone? Monday, end of day, we're all thank you so much, Chi. Monday, end of day, we're all finished with our prototypes. As an action point, we all make notes in our prototypes as comments. On Tuesday, I'll then go into the prototyping file and I will move towards consolidating in some way all of the comments. And then we actually have some discussion points on Wednesday for the Bitcoin Core call. How does that feel for everyone? Or do you have
Cool.
any other ideas on a better like
Um,
consolidation, or maybe you want another call?
yeah, I mean, I would almost prefer to work through this separately, and then we have the call with everyone, just kind of show what we came up with.
Okay, let's do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, let's take
And
some time and then schedule a call instead of scheduling it first.
Okay, so we share on the
and
call on
if we
Wednesday. Mhm.
Mo, can we use this room for a couple of more minutes? Because I could just show Joshua how
Yeah.
to do what he asked to, if it's possible.
Go for
Mo,
it.
make sure to stop the recording before you hop out.
Okay, guys, thank you everyone for joining the call. I'm so sorry, but Christoph and I do have to leave. For the rest of you, you're more than welcome to stay on the call, continue asking questions, and we will all share our own designs on the next call. Bye, everyone.
All
Thank
right,
you for
Mo.
joining.
Thanks. You're the best. Stop the recording. Stop the recording.
Stop the recording.